Do you think they'll bring masks back? I'm not sure they'll bring it back short of a major like Omicron level wave of COVID infections. I know that there are more COVID cases right now on land and on cruise ships currently. And I say that based on anecdotal evidence. People basically reporting, they were on the sailing and it seems like there's more people reporting that they've encountered that. That being said, this is something I think for right now is going to remain a personal choice. We're going on Serenade to the Seas, as I mentioned, on Sunday. And as a family, we've decided we're going to be wearing masks on board while indoors because it's just not, it's not worth the risk for us. We want to be able to enjoy the cruise. We're going all the way to Alaska. It's not a big deal. I did it for a year and some change. It was nice not having them, but I'm personally doing that. That's my choice, obviously. But whether or not Royal Caribbean will bring it back, the answer, of course, Mitch, is we have no idea. But I think in my heart of hearts, I would say it would not come back unless there was a significant uptick in cases. Again, akin to like what we saw with Omicron back in December or so. But you never know. Corners have been cut, for example. There are, I don't know what X restaurants have been cut back on the quality of food. I disagree. I mean, the quality of food, that's a subjective phrase. Fanfic rocks. I disagree with that. Corners cut on the quality of service. The rooms that are lacking. I don't know if the rooms are lacking. I disagree with that one. In terms of quality of service, I mean, there is a fair argument, I do believe, right now, because the ships are not fully staffed. This is true of like everywhere you go. Like there is a staff shortage everywhere, worker shortage, right? You go to your local drive-through, Disney World, you go on a cruise ship. I mean, this is a reality of it. That's not a corner that's being cut intentionally. That's a reality of the world we live in. As for the food, sorry, I disagree with you. I don't think the quality has been cut back at all. I think they've been pretty consistent. In the main dining room, you've got what I believe to be, most food is usually in this, good to very good category, with a couple of things being, maybe like a ooh, and a couple of things being, hey, that was really, really good. I enjoyed that quite a bit. And then in terms of the rooms being lacking, I don't even know what that means. I think the rooms have always been pretty consistent. In fact, on the newer ships, Odyssey, Wonder, Symphony, Ovation, the cabins are fantastic. I love the new look of the cabins on Royal Caribbean, with their newer ship. So again, different strokes. I mean, they're subjective, is what I'm trying to say in many of these situations here. But I don't think you can make a statement that a broad statement like that applies across the fleet and say, yes, this is the case across the way. It's just not true at all. And again, 2 out of 3 of those are subjective personal opinions, which you're entitled to. Totally fine. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I don't agree with them. And I certainly wouldn't repeat them as, oh, everybody listening, these 3 things are a problem. The second one is a problem, and I talked about that. I wrote an article about that, Jeff. I don't know why I'm calling you Jeff. Fanfic rocks. I wrote about that last week in that article I wrote about the big problems that Royal Caribbean is facing. Now they have the whole fleet back. So, I mean, yeah. Is it worth it to have a balcony on Alaska cruise? This is a really tough question because, in the Caribbean, I'm really like, balcony or not, whatever. Alaska's a tougher one. Alaska, the problem with Alaska is, the answer is it's absolutely wonderful to have a balcony on Alaska cruise. The problem is the cost difference to move from an inside room to a balcony is way more usually than it is anywhere else, because everybody wants to do a balcony. So it really depends on the cost. Because let's say Chasing Tail, it's $1,000 more to go up to a balcony in Alaska. I would say I'd rather spend that $1,000 on a really awesome excursion than I would on a balcony. But there's a lot of people who would tell you, no, Matt, you really should get a balcony room. It's a must do. My counter argument is, yeah, but there's lots of public spaces on cruise ships, especially these days. And it's different. A lot of the, I believe, in my opinion, the recommendation, the old school methodology or recommendation to get a balcony for an Alaska cruise as a must do was based on older cruise ships from a different generation that had far fewer balconies and public space was limited. Anyway, I feel like it's totally different now. So it depends on how much more it is. Again, $1,000, I would use that money towards an amazing excursion. It's well worth it. It's going to be more worthwhile than your balcony. But hey, if money's not an object, or you can afford it one way or another, like Matt, doesn't matter to me, I can afford it one way or the other, then yeah, go for the balcony. Absolutely. Matt, what made you choose to go out of Canada rather than Seattle? The itinerary. The itineraries to Alaska out of Canada are, I hate to say superior, but they're better. They go to more ports than the ones out of Seattle do. And that was my impetus. I'd done Alaska before. We did it out of Seattle. And it was great, but I wanted to go to more than just Juneau and Skagway. I wanted to go to Sitka. I wanted to go to Haines. This is a double glacier itinerary. So yeah, that's the reason right there. If a stateroom category is no longer available for regular purchase, does that mean it will not be available for bidding on RoyalUp? Correct. More or less, yes. I would say the answer is yes. Basically, RoyalUp is not just an option to upgrade to rooms that are available. It's a what if, Mark. Royal Caribbean uses RoyalUp for people that cancel the cruise at the very last minute. So that way, they can fill in those rooms rather than traditionally they just wouldn't have been sold because somebody canceled the last week or so. And you'd be surprised how many people do cancel the last minute. So basically, when you bid for RoyalUp, yeah, I mean, if you bid on a grand suite and there's no more grand suites available that you can see on the website when you do a mock booking, you're right, there's none available. But if one was to become available because somebody canceled, then it would come in over there. So can you bring family radios on the ship? I think you mean walkie talkies. You can bring walkie talkies on board. I don't recommend them for two reasons. Number one, they're extremely annoying to everybody else around you. Number two, they don't really work that well on cruise ships because of the fact that everything is metal on the ship and the ship has its own set of radios which create interference. So I don't recommend them. And again, they're annoying to everybody else, but to each their own. Is it better to get the drink package when you book or should I wait until boarding, which might be less expensive? Carla, it will absolutely, positively be cheaper to get a drink package before your cruise than once on board. Book it now, lock in the price. Do not wait to book it later, or more importantly, do not wait to book it on board the ship. It will cost you more on board the ship. Any tips for first timers that have no idea? Yeah, so obviously you're in the right place. I mean, Rachel, you're here, you're asking the right questions. My advice is a couple things. Number one, this would be very self-serving answers, but I honestly believe these are the right answers for you. Number one, watch some of the videos we have here on our channel. We cover a lot of different topics about the cruise experience. It's more of the question, Rachel, of like, you don't know what you don't know. Maybe like to ask certain questions, but you can't possibly anticipate every question, right? So that's why, watching videos here on the Royal Caribbean Blog YouTube channel, going to RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com and reading through a number of articles we have there, I really do believe will help guide you and point you in the right direction. But when you do all that, inevitably, you still have a couple of concerns, some questions that are there. And certainly we can answer them here on YouTube, but also our message boards at RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com. You can post messages. There's a great community there that'll answer questions for you. So can you share your thoughts on Grandeur of the Seas? It's a Vision class ship. It's not going to have all the whiz-bang amazing features that you find on other cruise ships in the world, right? Like the Oasis class or the Quantum class. But what it's about, Trisha, when you go on a ship like Grandeur, is you're looking for a relaxing, classic cruise experience where, you're going to get up in the morning, you're going to, go have breakfast somewhere, and then you're going to go to the pool deck probably, maybe go read a book on your balcony or go down to the promenade deck. There's activities in the schooner bar, in the Centrum. There's things happening on board the ship for you to do. And of course, the beautiful places you get to visit on board. So as long as you're okay, Trisha, with, the fact that there aren't water slides or other activities that may or may not be important to you, it's a great ship. It's just a matter of understanding what the ship offers and doesn't offer. So what are the odds of getting an upgrade with a guaranteed room? I don't know if there's any odds. Odds requires you to have some sort of frame of reference to be able to say, okay, statistically speaking, you've got a 25% chance. There's really no way to know about it, Barud. Because it's a blind bidding system, it's virtually impossible to know. The chance is between 1 and 99%. I don't know where it honestly falls. It really depends on a lot of factors that we just don't know about. So when I tell people, if you're interested in really upgrading, call your travel agent and say, hey, I see there's a room available that's costs more. Can I please upgrade to that? And that'll be fine. In watching your videos, we've learned that we should use book through a travel agent for our cruise. My question is, do they have the same sale prices we can get online and book on our own? Absolutely. In fact, they can be even cheaper, Keith, because sometimes travel agents have lower prices because they either have a group space, they're part of a consortia, which is it's the overarching group of travel agencies, and they can have special rates. So it's no more expensive. It'll cost you absolutely nothing more, Keith, but be cheaper. Now, keep in mind, Keith, some travel agents out there do charge for their services, which I don't agree with. And quite frankly, you should never use a travel agent that charges for their services as it relates to booking a cruise. So like, if you want to make a change in your reservation, some do that change. Anyway, but the ones that many do not charge fees for their services. And in that situation, then it would be no different. And in fact, possibly cheaper than booking on your own. Why is it named Royal Caribbean if they don't they go to other places in the Caribbean? It's a great question, Vinny. When the company was formed back in the late 60s, Originally, they had one ship and it only went to the Caribbean. And back then, really, cruise ships were really limited to the Caribbean. I'm not saying there weren't ship cruises, obviously, in the Mediterranean or elsewhere. But when Royal Caribbean began, the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, they began sailing out of Miami, Song of Norway, and operated out of there. And they operated out of Miami to the Caribbean for many, many years before expanding outwards. I quite frankly don't even know which ship went first out of the Caribbean, but that's essentially why. So it's a callback, I guess, from then, and they just kept it around, I guess. Thinking of saving some money and trying a virtual balcony? What say you, Larry? Thank you for your generosity, my friend. When it comes to the virtual balcony or not, don't look at it, Larry, as like, oh, I want to book a balcony or a virtual balcony. Look at it like it's basically an upgraded interior room. And let me tell you something. I'm gonna quote. I don't know if it's a quote, but I'm gonna refer you to one of our chatters in here, Josh Carruthers, who usually goes for cheaper room for more money, either for another cruise or for a better onboard experience, like a drink package or whatnot. There's a really good argument, Larry, that you should go for that inside room, go for that virtual balcony, save the money, and with that saved money, apply it to something else, a drink package, shore excursion, or even better, another cruise. So I say, yeah, go for it, man. I know I can bring 2 bottles of wine on board, but what if I'm doing a back-to-back? Can I bring 4? It's a gray area, Bill. I've certainly heard of a lot of people who basically bring 4, and if the security questions you, then they say, hey, I'm doing a back-to-back. Here's my set sail pass for next week, and then maybe they'll be allowed to. I mean, there is no, let me put it this way, Bill. There's no written policy that actually, that I've ever seen or I'm aware of that actually explains that and says that for this particular scenario. But I've definitely seen people who've done that. The alternative, Bill, of course, is between cruises. You could get off the ship and go get wine and come back on board, but who wants to do that, right? I would probably do the first thing, like bring 4, have the second set sail pass so you can show security when they question you on it. I did that once many years ago, and as soon as I showed it to them, they're like, okay, no problem at all. You're good to go. Thanks for all your information. Thoughts on Explorer of the Seas? Only sailed Oasis and want to adventure out. It's a Voyager class ship. It's a fun ship. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. I get a lot of questions about, Matt, what do you think of this ship or that ship or this ship? There's not one ship I wouldn't say, oh my God, don't go on it. It's a mistake. I love all the Royal Caribbean cruise ships. When it comes to any ship, and because you're coming from Oasis class and you're going to Explorer, I think you know this, but I'm going to say this anyway. There are some differences between the two, meaning there are features and amenities on Oasis that do not exist on Explorer. As long as you're okay with that and understand that, it's fine, right? The biggest mistake I see is people who assume that all the Royal Caribbean ships are pretty much the same. And so they'll go from like Oasis to Explorer. And then they're like, where's the boardwalk? Where's the zip line? Where's the full Broadway show? Well, they don't have, like, Voyager or Explorer doesn't have that. Okay. But they have other things as well. They do have not water slides. They have Flow Rider. They have the rock climbing wall still. They have other things to do and entertainment every night, but it's a different experience. So just be okay with that one. Are there more specific ships that are more adult friendly than others? I don't know what you mean by adult friendly. If you're inferring, are there ships that have less kids on board? No, Royal Caribbean is always has been, is, and will be a family cruise line. That's the bottom line. There's always going to be families. And actually, more specifically, what I love about Royal Caribbean is that it's not just one age group or another. It's not all kids. This isn't Disney Cruise Line. It's not all adults. It's not Holland America, right? It is a mix of all ages. You have a good assortment of them. So it never feels like, oh, I'm on a ship full of insert, gender or sorry, not gender, age groups here, right? I think that's a beauty of Royal Caribbean. Now, certainly, Erica, if you were taking a certain itinerary, like a cruise that is more than 10 nights, generally speaking, tends to have far less children because, most families don't want to take off that much time and or they're in school. So generally speaking, longer cruises like transatlantics, repositioning cruises are examples of that. So thank you to everybody for hanging out tonight. Have a great week, everybody. Stay safe out there. Do something fun. That's important as well. And we'll talk again very soon right here on YouTube. Good night, everybody.